In this class, we will discuss about tuple and dictionary in detail. Before moving to tuple and dictionary, let's write an interview question and you try to solve it. If you have any doubt, we can discuss that in next class. So the question is, okay, you have a list, right? And this list is two-dimensional list, like matrix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? This is a two-dimensional list. Now, output should be, you need to flatten it. Okay, yeah, output should be 1, 2, 3, comma, 4, 5, 6. So you need to convert two-dimensional list into one-dimensional list. So that is the question. So here, try to build two solutions. One is using brute force technique, a simple solution. Calculate the time complexity of it, and then reduce your time complexity to certain level where you can say this is your optimal solution. तो आप सॉल्यूशन वन बनाओ जो इजी रहेगा लेकिन सॉल्व हो जाएगा. टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी कैलकुलेट करो. आफ्टर दैट एक नया सॉल्यूशन बनाओ जो ऑप्टिमल होगा, उसकी टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी आपके फर्स्ट सॉल्यूशन से कम होगी. दैट शुड बी द अप्रोच टू सॉल्व. A tuple is an ordered, immutable collection of elements. Once it is created, its content cannot be changed. It's like string. स्ट्रिंग भी इम्यूटेबल होती है, उसका भी कंटेंट हम लोग चेंज नहीं कर सकते, टपल का भी नहीं कर सकते. So this immutability makes tuples hazeable. This topic we will discuss. And safe to use as keys in dictionaries. तो जब हम डिक्शनरी पढ़ेंगे उसमें की वैल्यू पेयर होता है, तो टपल एज अ की हम यूज कर सकते हैं क्योंकि वो इम्यूटेबल है, हम उसे चेंज नहीं कर सकते. और एलिमेंट्स इन सेट्स. So how to create a tuple in Python? So let's say t1 equals to simple small bracket. If I say print type of t1, so when you run it, you see the output is right. It belongs to tuple class. Now let's say if you want to create a tuple which has some elements, for example t2 equals a small bracket, let's say the element is 90, right? And if I say print type of t2, so the output will be int, not tuple. So always remember, if you have a single value for tuple, you should use comma, okay, like this. Otherwise, it will be considered as integer. So this is one of the things you should always keep in mind. So if I run it, see now, it got changed from int to tuple now. To define tuple, we use small bracket and elements are separated by comma. So now we can store different types of data in tuple. Definitely, yes. You can store integer, you can store float, or string, or list, or tuple also, or dictionary also, right? So you, when you are creating a tuple, you can have multiple types of data stored in tuple. So if you see here, if I run it, then it works, right? Now, the interesting question is, if tuple is immutable, and I want to change here because list is mutable, right? If I want to change here, it will change or not. So before moving to that, let's understand about the tuples indexing. So tuple indexing works in same way. So now if we do the indexing, so it also accept a positive indexing and negative indexing. So let's say, all right. So the positive indexing says like this. first element will be 0th index, second element will be on first index, then second, third, and fourth. So how many total elements are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? The length of this tuple, if I say length of T3, that will be 5. And if I say negative indexing, it also works in same way. Starts from -1, from end, then -2, -3, -4, -5. Right. This is great. So let's try to access each element by index. So how to do that? Simple way, print T3, then square bracket and pass the index. Let's say 0th index. Right? Or print T3 first index, then print uh, T3 second index, third index, right? Like that. So if I try to access it, you see the output. 0th index is 1, then hello, then 3.14, then entire list. Right. Now, tuple is immutable. If I want to change anything at, let's say, T3 of 0th index, I want to change from 1 to 100. And if I run it, so the output will be error, right? It will throw an error. So this will raise an error because of tuple is immutable. This is makes sense. Right? So I'll just uh, comment it. Now I try to modify the list which is uh, available at index 3, right? At index 3 and then index 1, I will change 2 to, let's say, 200, right? And then I'll print T3. So now see the output. So it got changed, right? Because the element which you are accessing, the type of element is list here. So this will work because you are now performing on operation on list, not on tuple. Okay. So by nature it will work. Now let's suppose you have a tuple, let's say T4, and hold on, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you are concatenating it, then what will the output? Same like a string. So it will add other tuple into it. In string also we concatenate, right? Similar way, one tuple can be added to other tuple using plus symbol. So now let's move to slicing. So slicing also works in same way like your string or list may, right? Let's suppose I want to access subtuple this reason. Hello 3.14, 1, 2, 3. These elements. So what will be the values in slice? First index will be 1, correct? The start index. Then colon. Last index, I want to access till 3. Then I need to pass 4, right? Plus 1 we have to pass. Colon. Step is 1. So by default also 1. If you pass, then also fine. If you don't pass, then also it's okay. Because by default it will take the next element. So let's say here T3. So subtuple equals to T3 of start index from 1 to 4, 1. Right? So print it, then subtuple, the value is hello 3.14 and this list also what actually. And if I want to do reverse, simple, print T4 colon colon minus 1, right? Same way, like string and list, you can do reverse of also. So now let's discuss more about tuples. Let's say you have a data variable, right? And in this variable, you have some values in tuple form: 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. And now if I want to iterate और I want to access each element one by one, तो जैसे हम for loop लगाते हैं, for value in data, we will be able to access each value. Simple है वो, तो वैल्यू बाय वैल्यू कर्सर जाएगा, उसको विजिट करेगा, एक्सेस कर लेगा. लेकिन अगर हमको इंडेक्स के थ्रू इसे एक्सेस करना है तो हम क्या करेंगे, राइट? दैट इज अ चैलेंज. सो नाउ लेट्स सॉल्व दैट प्रॉब्लम. So let me repeat. Okay, so the indexing is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to iterate or I want to access each element using index. So we have one range function which you can use. So in range function, there are three arguments. One is start, then you have stop, right, and step. So you can write a heading range function. So range function is built-in tool used to generate an immutable sequence of integers. So where start parameter means starting the sequence. So is it optional or mandatory? Yes, it is optional. So start is optional. By default value is 0. So if you are not passing anything for start, it takes by default 0. Stop, stop is the parameter, the number of before which the sequence will end. So let's say if you are passing stop 10, so your sequence will end at 9. Then you have step. So step is something if you want to skip. Same way like in slicing also. So how many steps you want to increment between each number in the sequence. So let's say if I pass 2 here, then what are the sequence this range function will generate? It starts from 0, then it will jump to the next, right? Next second, because step is 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, then, right? Because 9 is not in consideration. So if I pass a step, if I don't pass a step, let's say I'm not passing it, मैंने यहाँ पे default ये 1 consider करेगा if I'm not passing, then it generates a sequence 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 till 9, right? So now if you see, we can get this total sequence if we use range function. तो सपोज करो कि मेरे को इसका इंडेक्स तैयार करना है, तो मैं रेंज फंक्शन में क्या कैसे कर सकता हूँ? रेंज, नाउ बाय डिफॉल्ट स्टार्ट इज 0. अगर पास करोगे तभी भी 0 लेगा, नहीं करोगे तभी भी 0 लेगा. चलो मैं पास कर देता हूँ, ठीक है. देन स्टॉप, कहाँ तक मेरे को चलाना है ये? लेंथ ऑफ डेटा, राइट? वाई हैव पास लेंथ ऑफ डेटा. अगर मैं 5 पास करूंगा, द टोटल एलिमेंट्स आर 5 हियर, इफ आई एम पासिंग 5, तो ये 4 तक जाएगा, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. और स्टेप्स में बाय डिफॉल्ट 1 होता है, but if you want to pass, you can pass it. So if I can use this range function in this way, it will generate this index sequence, right? So as a reference, we can use range. So now let's use it there. So let's say for I in range starting from 0, comma, length of data, right? Then comma 1. Then I'm printing again. Now if you see, the difference here is I was printing directly value here. I am printing here data of I using index, right? In fact, you can print index also. Print index. So index will be I, right? Index, comma I. So if I run this program, see the output. At index 0, the element is 100. At index 1, 200. So this range function generates that sequence, and using that sequence, we are able to access each element using indexing methodology. Now let's suppose I want to reverse, or I want to traverse the reversal of this. Example, मेरा sequence शुरू होना चाहिए end से and it should go back. यानी right to left आना चाहिए, right? Right to left के लिए मैं क्या करूँगा? Step को -1 कर दूंगा. Okay, तो मैं कैसे लिखूंगा? For I in range. Now start कहाँ से कर रहा हूँ मैं? Length of data -1. करेक्ट. इंडेक्स मेरा 4 है ना, लेंथ ऑफ डेटा 5 है, तो मेरा स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट क्या बनेगा? 4, कॉमा कहाँ तक जाना है मेरे को? आई वांट टू ट्रेवर्स इट बैक, राइट? सो आई वांट टू स्टॉप इट, लेट्स से 0. लेकिन 0 पे स्टॉप करना है तो उसके लिए और एक और आगे चलना पड़ेगा, राइट? अगर मैं 0 पास कर दूंगा तो 1 पे रुक जाएगा. ओके, इसीलिए मैं -1 पास कर रहा हूँ. एंड देन आई से कि ट्रेवर्स फ्रॉम राइट टू लेफ्ट, तो -1 मैंने फिर से स्टेप में पास कर दिया. Now if I pass index versus data, I'll just comment it so that confusion nahi hoga. See here, we are able to iterate reverse also. At index 4, 500, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Right? So this is the way you can iterate reverse also using range function. All right. So these are some operations which you can use for tuple. To concatenate it, to concatenate, you can use like plus sign. If you want a repetition, you can have multiply, right? So let's suppose you have t1 equals to 1, comma 3, comma 4. This is tuple, right? And if I say print t1 into 4, so this will repeat 4 times, correct? So if you run it, see 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, right? It will repeat that. So you can create your repetition in this way. And if you want to check whether the element is available or not, you can use in operator. So let's suppose if I say print 3 in T1, right? Then what it does? So this will check if 3 is tuple or not. So it will return true, right? And if some data is not available, let's say print 5 in T1, then it says false. So this is for checking the membership. Iteration, we have already understand that. We pass we do the looping and उसके अंदर हम loop करने के बाद we can iterate each element one by one. So these are some operations you can perform on tuple. So there are two predefined functions available for tuple. One is count and index. So how to use count? Let's suppose you have a tuple t1 equals to, there are some data 100, 200, like this, right? 300, 400, 500, then again 100, 200. So if I say print t1 dot count, you pass any value to it. So if you run this, it will give you the total number of frequencies, the total number of times your item is available. 100, how many times is available? 2 times. Right? If I say 200, 200 is also available 2 times. If I say, let's say 300, print t1 dot count, let's say 300, how many times? 1 time, correct? If I say print t1 dot count 600, which is not available, then what it will return? 0, 0 times. So like this, it will return the number of times data is available. Similarly, if you use index, so it returns you the first index of your element. Let's suppose if I say print t1 dot index index of 200, right? So it will return the first index whenever it find कि भाई यहाँ पे मेरे को 200 मिल गया है, then उसका index क्या है? So if you see the index of 200 is 1, like this. So it always return the first index, not the second one. Okay. अगर मेरे को सेकंड वाला ढूंढना है या अगसे अगले वाले का मेरे को इंडेक्स ढूंढना है, तो आई हैव टू गो इन सेम वे लाइक स्ट्रिंग वी डिड, राइट? कि आप पहले स्लाइसिंग कर लो, स्लाइसिंग के बाद फिर अगले वाले में आप फिर से इंडेक्स लगा लो जो रिमेनिंग पार्ट है. So let's say if you want to delete the entire tuple t1, so you can use del t1. So this will delete the entire tuple itself. Right? Now if I say print t1, so it returns error. Then it returns error. Why? Because I have already deleted this variable, right? Entire data variable also. So that is why it returns an error. So there are some use cases where in AI/ML applications you can use tuple. For example, if you want to represent any immutable parameters, let's say you are defining some points, some coordinates of geometrical data, right? Or there are some parameters which will not change. For example, learning rate or batch size. So this is the data which we should not modify internally. It should be fixed, and if we change, it should be changed entirely. We should be overwriting it. If we see return multiple values from a function, so we will study this. So this is one of the most use case when our function is returning multiple values. That time we return it tuple form. So we will discuss in detail. Then the fourth use case is as dictionary keys for caching. So sometime we use for caching, right? So that time we can create a keys. This is called like concept called memorization. We will be discussing that in machine learning side. Then I'll show you how we can use tuples as keys. Right? So these are the some use cases. Um, so this is all about tuples. In next class, we will discuss in detail dictionaries. We'll have more operations, interview questions around to that. So before closing the call, I would like to ask some assignment questions to you for this week. So you write these questions. These are the interview questions. So first question is, what is the main difference between list and tuple? The next question is, why can tuples be used as dictionary keys but list cannot? All right. Then in next video we will discuss about dictionary. Thank you for watching.